Well, yesterday's video was a bit of a babble fest, wasn't it? Be interesting to see what comes. Absolutely can't wait. Anticipating replies from both those people who emailed in yesterday and shared, right? Now, what else do we have here? My Bigfoot experience 13 miles south of Dallas, Texas. Isn't that crazy? I've been to Dallas. Dallas is a big city now, isn't it? Hello, Steve. First, thank you for sharing everyone's experiences in this forum. I much admire your resolve in giving us, all of us, who have had an encounter, a safe place to get this stuff off our chest without fear of being ridiculed or judged. No problem, man. Now, on my experience and some of my family members. Roughly 30 miles south of Dallas, Texas is a small farming community called Garrett. I grew up and went to school in the neighboring town of Ennis. It's either Enos or Ennis. But had several relatives who lived in Garrett. One night as a teenager in 85 or 86, me and a high school buddy of mine were coming back from bowling in another neighboring town, Waxahachie, at around 10:30 p.m. along a backcountry farm to Market Road. I traveled this way thousands of times as a child with my parents, and then later on by myself when I got my driver's license, and still traverse this stretch regularly to this day without any odd happenings before or since. But on this night, as I was coming into the city limits, I noticed something very strange. The road makes a slow curve from west to east if you're traveling south as we were. On the west side of the road is a large horse pasture. So, as you're approaching, you look out across the pasture due to its positioning. As my headlights went across the pasture, I saw the horses there were running frantically back and forth in what is about a 5-acre lot. As my truck's headlights continued panning across the pasture, as I made this slow curve, I saw what was freaking them out. Standing beside the barbed wire fence was a hairy, silver gray colored creature, twice as tall as the 5-strand fence. "48 to 52 inches tall. It was leaning over the fence and waving its excessively long arms at the horses like it was trying to spook them. I couldn't even process what I was seeing. Now, as soon as my lights hit this thing, it turned toward my truck and took off at a dead run straight towards me. Again, I wasn't even processing what was happening, but it was like it was all happening in slow motion. While this was happening, my high school buddy had his head looking downward into my glove box, sorting through my cassette tapes for something to listen to. I wasn't seeing what was transpiring until I snapped out of my stupor at the last second and yanked my steering wheel hard to the left to keep from colliding with this thing. When I did this, my friend's head bounced off the passenger side window, and all he caught was a glimpse of something big and gray going by. He exclaimed, "What was that?" But I wasn't hanging around to find out as I punched it, getting the hell away from there. I made it about 2 miles, and I had to stop because I was shaking so bad I couldn't even drive. My friend swapped out with me and drove to the other friend's house, where they both took several hours calming me down. Luckily, they were true friends, and it was never discussed outside of our trio, for we all knew how it would be received. Now, here's where it get connected to other members of family. Around that same curve lived one of my uncles and his family. Years later, talking with an older cousin, he talked about an incident that had happened years before my encounter. Across the same road from his house was another large pasture that was unfenced and had a few large oak trees scattered in it. One summer night, him and the family dog, a big Dalmatian named Muggs, were sitting on the tailgate of my uncle's truck looking out across his pasture. My cousin said it was a moonlit night so he could see reasonably well. He said Muggs started growling at something moving across this pasture. My cousin said it was big and walking on 2 legs. It proceeded to walk up behind one of these large oak trees and would poke its head around the trunk, looking at my cousin and his dog. This tree is roughly 50 yards from where my cousin was sitting. After a few minutes, it started walking parallel to the road, and my cousin to another large tree about 75 yards to my cousin's left. Once there, it again started doing the peekaboo around the tree at my cousin. And his dog, who my cousin said had to never stop growling, Muggs, was a rough customer who up to that point had always been an excellent watchdog, afraid of nothing. But when this thing decided to cross the road to my cousin's side, when that happened, my cousin said Muggs yelped and hit the house. The next thing my cousin said was all he could hear was the sound of nails clicking on the blacktop as it crossed the road, so he ran into the house too. Now, after telling me of this incident with him, he asked if I knew about an incident that happened with one of my sisters and one of her friends around the same time, about a half-mile west of there, on a dirt road that feeds into this blacktop farm to Market Road. He told me my sister and her friend have been out on this road one evening collecting aluminum cans when some big hairy creature walked out on the road with them, scaring the hell out of them. But they jumped back in my sister's friend's car and got the hell out of there. She had never told me about it, no more than I had brought my encounter up. I know it wouldn't have been well received, more than likely. My cousin had only heard about it through my sister's friend. All these three incidents happened in basically half a mile of each other in the early to mid-'80s. None of us had any knowledge of what the others had seen until a couple of decades later, when we finally felt somewhat more comfortable enough to talk about it with each other. We're all credible and still have never discussed it in any public setting. I'm the first that felt the forum you've established was a good place to tell our respective stories. We know what we saw was real, but just didn't feel it was worth getting thought of as crazy or as liars in a small communities here. I'll just sign off with my nickname, as I have no desire for a spotlight on me or my kinfolk. The accounts of what we saw and when and where they happened is all that deserves being passed along for others to hear. Take care, Steve, and God bless. Doc. Doc, absolutely appreciate it. And you probably know what I'm about to say, but make sure once you see this getting posted on the channel, make sure you email this to everybody involved that has had an experience around you growing up back then, all right? Just send it to them, and they don't have to email me or the people. No big deal, but hopefully what it'll do is it will show them that they're not alone, and many people are talking about this shit openly now, right? Which they are. The narrative was previously being held by a handful of people who loved the attention and loved to make sure that the people only read about and heard what they wanted them to hear. And that's come to an end, thankfully. And hopefully this channel gets some credit for that, as well as a few other YouTube channels out there, I would imagine, as well, right? But the narrative is not controlled anymore. We took it back. The people own it, and it's free to speak about anything now, okay? And I just want your people, your kinfolk, to know that. Your small communities, I want them to know that, okay? That's what we've done. That was our goal, and we're killing it, as usual. Thanks for sharing that, man. Glad you guys are all safe, obviously. Now, what do we got here? Here's another one. These are all recently emailed too. The old phone's in the truck. I think it died again. The battery screwed on it. Central Virginia, Sabe. Hello, Steve. My name is Teresa. I'd love to include my last name. I would love to include my last name and the location this is happening, but at this time I'm not able to. I can say this is near George Washington National Forest in Central Virginia, and that is fine. That's okay. In the summer 2015, I was taking my two sons, 6 and 12 at the time, deep in the forest to play in streams and get us all unplugged. It's family property, and my father, who grew up with 9 siblings in a log cabin at that property, taught me how to be a competent mountain woman. I'm not a hunter, but I know sign, how to track, and use firearms. I've hiked these mountains my whole life, and I know when something is not right. I saw an unusual tree bent in a Z shape. I thought it looked a bit like a Native American directional tree, but it looked too young since no tribes have lived here in at least 100 years. I heard loud knocks on trees that were too strong to be a woodpecker. Something was urine marking the logging road in front of us every trip. Huge scat pile that looked like humans, but much larger and contained fur. Totally quiet and still forest, not even bugs. That feeling that you know you're being watched. One day as we were walking in, I heard the sound of a tree being decimated on the ridge above us. Okay, you want to threaten me and my sons? Mama Bear activated. I shot my .357 directly above the unseen creature that I assumed was a bear and bolted and belted out a thunderous roar. That seemed to work because all was silent the rest of the day. 2 weeks later, we returned. There was a pile of bird bones where we normally sat. I've seen a bobcat eat a goose, feathers and all, nothing left. I racked my brain trying to figure out what predator would leave the bones. I'm okay with passive warnings, and it also didn't feel threatening, more like a message to say, I'm here, this is where I live. As I was pondering all these oddities, I started a mental list of the strange things happening. I started with the bear to try to ascertain whether they were smart enough to know you would be coming on a certain trail and be able to mark it ahead of you. Steve, that question is how I found your channel. And oh boy, that opened up a ride on the crazy train, LOL. I had seen the Patterson-Gimlin film and thought it was most likely real footage, that they have probably all died out. And if anyone were left, only special people, as in native tribal leaders and such, would probably be able to see them. I'm not anyone special, and right salty at times, so how would I ever see them? I discussed all this with my father, who spent the first 20-something years of his life there. I asked if he had seen any very tall creatures covered in hair living up there. No. I tried asking him several different ways, as him and his family have such a vastly different upbringing experience from most folks, that what he thinks is normal or abnormal may differ greatly from the rest of us. He kept saying he didn't see anything like that. Fast forward to Memorial Day this past spring. I told my 18-year-old son about my suspicions, and he laughed at me. Ouch. He even ridiculed me, even in front of the others. Double ouch. So I convinced him to just go on a hike with me. I brought a mason jar with a couple of lovely carved stone beads and a pack of pumpkin seeds inside my backpack. As we reached the area where the bones were left, I slipped and placed it on the rocks without my son seeing me do this. We hiked about a quarter mile further and I saw a very large bed down area in the grass with what looked like handprints twisted in the dirt, as if something jumped up in a hurry. The smashed down grass area is about the size of a buffalo. There are no buffalo with hands in Virginia, LOL. Feeling very insecure about my firepower, I suggested we turn back since I had a 2-mile stretch of pure uphill and another couple miles to get back to my truck. I also saw lots of tree structures, trees broken off high up that I had paused at before as another oddity, but now knew full well what they were. The mason jar was gone. Bingo. That told me definitely there were Sabe here. I prefer to call them Sabe because Bigfoot just seems rude. It might be silly, but I don't want to do anything to make these people mad at me. So my son starts his load of crap, yelling antagonistic, "Come here, Bigfoot boy, yoo-hoo, large smelly man." Dear God, I was afraid that fool was going to get us killed, so I just kept apologizing to the air for his stupid behavior. We all have 2 sets of DNA and can blame our children on each other. LOL. When we got safely to the truck, I told him about the jar. He knows that I don't lie, and all the color drained from his face. I'm going to pause for a second there. Now, every single person, the majority of people, just like I said before, that laugh and mock and open ridicule people for what they saw, it scares the shit out of them. All right, just keep that in mind, all you people who are listening. It scares the shit out of them. This topic scares them. And bingo, we just had another confirmation of that. The second he realized, all the blood drained out of his face, right? He's like, oh shit, he's shitting himself. Because what he thought was, what he reacted with humor and laughing at was real, and it scared him that it might be real, and now he's realizing it, right? Just trying to drop that in for all you people to get laughed at. It's because they're scared. He still had to spend his own pondering time on it and still didn't really want to believe. That's okay with me, but keep your ignorance out of the woods or you may end up in a missing 411. I could tell the next month he had been thinking things through, but was still apt to joke about crazy mom. It's the survival mechanism. I'd always planned to build us a little cabin in the woods to escape to, but unfortunately it may become our permanent residence as my younger son has special needs and we can't afford to continue to pay for our house. But the government cares about every one of us dearly, right? So I'm thinking now, I have to figure out a way to build a house by myself. Fortunately, my oldest has decided it may be better for him to stay out of the woods, and do so without making these people mad enough to want to kill me. I went back to my dad again because I just felt that he had to know something, and he is in hospice care now, so I had to figure it out fast. I found Harvey Pratt's witness sketches of Sabe and chose one from a side view. I showed this to my dad and said, "Have you ever seen this before?" My dad says, "Hey, I know that guy." Oh my goodness, did I have questions, LOL. Here we go. Me. How many times did you see him? Dad, oh, about 10 to 12 times. I always spoke to him, but he never spoke back. He was too shy. My dad said this in a very endearing way. Me. Well, how tall was he? Dad, between 6 and 7 feet tall, I reckon. Me. Did you see anyone else from his family? Dad, I think I might have, but I'm not sure. Me. Was he wearing clothes? Dad. I don't really remember if he was or not. I didn't pay any attention to that. Mountain people wore furs and were very modest and shy. I can't speak for all, but most of my dad's family wouldn't look at anything other than your face. It was considered rude. Me. Did you ever have any trouble with them stealing your chickens, crops, or just being bothersome? Dad. Oh no, never. He was very emphatic. Me. Where did they live at? Dad. I can't fill this in because I have found them where he told me, and since I may be living close to them, I didn't want a bunch of people whooping and hollering, running around the forest trying to get them to come out. If they don't bother me, I don't want them to bother them. Fair enough. So my father had just confirmed so much. It's interesting that he said that he knew that guy. That speaks to how human of them some look. I began clearing the road, cutting down trees to open up the land for building our new little cabin. Of course, I had already claimed that property as ours and felled nearly 50 trees. When my dad and I had this conversation, I realized they were on the ridge right above me. So I decided that since they hadn't bothered my dad's family, I would continue on that site. Since 34-mile drive takes close to 2 hours to drive, I bought a camper for my truck to spend several days at a time. My first weekend there was interesting. I honestly don't think they knew I was there. On the Saturday night, as soon as it turned that pitch black in the forest, I heard a bunch of whooping and hollering. It sounded like a bunch of frat boys were just released to head to a party. I'm not gonna lie, I was amazed to hear a group of happy, excited Sabe and terrifying at the same time. I kept my loaded revolver in my right hand and my personal locator beacon open and ready to activate in the other hand. I kept thinking about the letter you posted from Slim on the essence of fear and how it is part of the human condition. That struck such a deep chord with me that it helped me soak up that really cool part of the experience and keep my fear from giving me a heart attack. I worked quietly the next morning and only ran the battery chainsaw in the evening. I figured with the amount of celebration I heard, they might have a hangover, LOL. On Sunday night, when the darkness hit, I heard a sound 2 times that sounded like a mix between an owl and a coyote. It was, of course, no natural sound, and over the next hour or so, I would hear them following the ridgeline all around where I was. They were hunting. This is a game trail next to my driveway, and the next morning there were 4 clear, barefoot prints in the soft dirt. One of them was only 5 inches, so I know they have a child also. There were also a couple of deer prints that abruptly stopped, so I'm guessing they chased it and had it for dinner. Monday night I thought I should try to record whatever sound they chose to make because the footprint photos I now have, it would be kind of cool to have them recorded. I'd gotten a kick out of the celebrating frat boys. Well, I think they may have just realized I was there because I heard not a whoop, a yell, a holler, or anything else for the next 30 minutes or so after the darkest part of night hit. Then I started hearing something a bit scary, like scratching sounds around my truck. So I'm trying to protect a very kind, gentle human image to these people because I'm trying to project, because I don't want any trouble. So I bounce up in my camper with the flashlight, point it out the window, and loudly shout out, "Sabe, is that you? Can you please come visit me in the morning because it's kind of scary to not be able to see you after dark." At this point, I hadn't actually seen them, so a part of me is just shaking my head, laughing, thinking, what a crazy woman, and I'm out here talking to these people. Tuesday morning, I was packing up my truck and getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden I got that feeling someone was staring at me. I looked straight up at him or her on the ridge beside me. I smiled at showing my teeth, waved and said, "Hello, thank you for visiting me." I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm really seeing what I think I'm seeing. So I looked down and back up, and he or she was gone. Okay, that was a confirmation for me. That Sabe had dark gray, leathery looking skin and very black hair on his or her head. The neck down was obscured by trees and shrubs, so I could only see the head. I can't climb up there. It was, as it is, extremely steep, so I'm not sure how big it was. It really surprised me that it was gray and black. That guy my dad had seen was a light tan color, so I assumed that would be what I would see. 2 weeks later, I was taking some property measurements that involved me crossing the stream. When I got back to my side, a largish rock landed in the stream loud enough to be heard, but not close enough to get me splashed or feel threatening. I just stopped and said, "Hello, Sabe, is that you?" I think I shall call him Sneaky Pete, LOL. As I was crossing the stream back and forth to my road/driveway, I suddenly heard what sounded like a large aircraft about to crash in the forest. First time I can say I was terrified. I stayed low by the stream because it truly sounded like it could crash on top of me any second. It was so loud, it literally hurt my ears, but I couldn't see it coming. Overhead, nor could I see it leave. Once in a while, airplanes and helicopters fly over, but this was a loud, low-flying something, moving very slow. The aircraft flying over me made me think about the fact I haven't seen their footprints on the game trail at any other time previously, and it just feels like they're not always there. I trust my gut and it's telling me they are connected. I started thinking about someone saying they move around. Did I hear their first night out and then hear their transportation to another location? Could this have been something else? Hunting season has started the following week, so if they move around, it seems like it would be a good time to leave that area. Since I've been there working on several occasions, I heard a woman's voice answering questions. I could never make out the words, but the voice seemed like she was responding to someone else, always calm. Never sounded like any drama. There are only 2 other women that go back there, and neither had been there in a week. And I could tell it was not either of them. The private land borders the George Washington National Forest. The land the Sabe are inhabiting was purchased by the government in the last 5 years or so for an astronomical price. The Forestry Service also purchased part of another landholder's property for a huge amount of money. I'm talking way over fair market value and way over the tax assessments. I follow my gut, and my gut tells me that the Forest Service knows they are there. I was going to wait until after this weekend's work trip to send this to you because I really wanted to see if they were still there or perhaps had maybe left on the very loud plane/craft I had heard. It was definitely not a helicopter. As my luck would have it, I fell downstairs last night while packing for this weekend and broke my ankle. No, you didn't. Oh, that sucks. I probably won't have any more experiences to share for a while, but I do plan to make a trip to retrieve some gear. I hope something has helped fill in pieces for others' puzzles. I now tell anyone and everyone I know about the Sabe. We are taught to act big, aggressive, and loud when bears, cougars, etc. come near us. My feeling is that the Sabe are doing the exact same thing that we do. If everyone knew they existed and they do these things to try to make us leave, there would be much less PTSD and many could continue to enjoy the great outdoors. Thank you, Steve, for all you do, and may God bless you. All right, thanks for that email. It was a longie, and man, I feel an ankle. I did that one time years ago, and I didn't have any money in the bank, and I only had me to take care of me, and that was really unfortunate, and it was really, really painful. So make sure you stay off and don't rush the healing process, or you're going to pay for it later on. I know lots of people that screwed themselves up for life by rushing the healing process of a broken ankle. And I hope your son, all of your children, hope all your children, your family find peace and a great secure home over their head after you get back at it, put forward that huge effort, right? Thanks again, and stay safe out there. And keep sharing whatever you learned. If you learn something that people you think they can benefit from, or supply somebody with a missing piece to their puzzle, do it. Share away. Okay, one more, and I'm going to try to get up over top of this mountain. Sasquatch experience, please use this. Well, let's see how long it is. It's a fair size. All right, here we go. Hi, Steve. Spell checked and read it once. Sorry, please use this version. Okay. Thank you for doing that. That's huge. I listened to your show for the first time driving on a fishing trip last weekend for 3 hours as we had to take 2 trucks. I was very fascinated by the platform you've created and just had to share my stories. You can just read one or all. Thanks again for quarterbacking all this is needed. Number 1, the Scream. I grew up on the eastern border of the Rocky Mountains in a little village outside of Hinton, Alberta called Folding Mountain. Hinton, been there numerous times. When I was 12 years old in 1990, we moved out to Folding Mountain, and I was the first kid in the village and an only child. I'll tell you, I knew every spot around those woods, sand dunes, rivers, and peaks. There's a trapper's cabin about 1 kilometer away from my house, and my Honda 250 never broke down, thankfully. I would cruise to dunes on the Athabasca River and up Folding Mountain for rips daily, often taking the back door home past the trapper's cabin. On the trail going up to Folding Mountain, there was this one knoll you would pass, and I always felt like maybe a wolf would be perched on it. Something made me always punch it around that corner, from 12 years old till one day when I was 16. How familiar is that sounding? That's exactly how I felt when I go through that pass when I was around 17 to go bow hunting, and I just couldn't take it. And then finally I seen that thing on the way out. I would pass that spot flying, no helmet, for years, ripping around as a kid until my later years at 16 and cocky decided to stop on a summer day and hike up the knoll to scope out a fishing spot. At the time I was getting pretty hooked on fishing, and I thought I saw some black spruce and some beaver ponds, so the knoll would provide an excellent viewing point to see the size of the pond's access and sewer factor. I walked quickly to the top and turned to my right as there was this unusual rock like a tombstone about 30 yards away from me. I felt like there was something behind the rock, or maybe buried there, being a curious kid, and as soon as that thought finished, I heard the most blood-curdling sound of my life. It was like everything went into slow motion as I turned around and jumped down the hillside, rolling at one point in the grass and dirt, and then mounting my quad, having to first reverse and then leave. I never ventured up there again, and after that, and soon had my second experience. But all these years until I listened to your show, I thought it was a cougar. But it was like a dream state / adrenaline state of slow motion, and I floated like a dream in the air when I jumped down the mountainside, somehow not getting hurt. But that sound was like a woman screaming in a horror movie, with a lion or roar blended in. I saw cougars and heard them many times growing up, and it scared the shit out of me. It's getting chilly. Number 2, the boulder. This one was really strange. Me and a friend were fly fishing in the Fiddle River, and you can walk right up to the canyon that is impassable, or to two young bucks possible. We saw a way you could rock climb and possibly make your way upstream, as we could see a beautiful honey hole through the other side. Once we confirmed our plan, we started to cross the river, which was balls deep and seemed like a bad idea. One step each forward, and boom, a perfect round boulder falls into the pool in front of us about 15 feet away. Now I've seen that, but usually there are some pebbles as well to plop in the water and not a clean round boulder. So we both looked at each other and we knew right away, get the F out. I did not look up, hoping to see if I did look up, hoping to see a figure standing at the top about 1,000 feet up, but nothing. I went back there. Over the years, always never felt the same, so I brought a knife and bear spray. Never had anything like that happen again there. So maybe just a boulder, but still kind of scary, like a warning. Number 3, the encounter. This is where it all gets funny. This has been a story that has made people think I'm a quack at family reunions. Amazed some, often 90% of the time gives people a laugh, followed by a, yeah, effing right, where's the photo? One sunny day, me and a friend Ryan went to this lookout over Muscuda Creek in 1997. I had recently graduated and blown my ACL snowboarding and had a fresh surgery. So I crutched into the spot by a train bridge over the Muscuda Creek overlooking the Athabasca Valley. We were sitting there having some beers, just enjoying the view and making jokes and laughing. It was nice to be out of the hospital. I was always a keen eye and spotted over the bridge around the bend something black shaped coming into focus. Ryan was babbling away and I kind of kept watching this thing. Is it a bear, I thought? Hard to say. The sun was in my eyes, so I put my hand over my eyes to shade it just right and squint. And I was thinking, holy F, that's a huge bear? I've seen about 100 bears in my life. I thought, no way. Maybe 2 seconds passed. Then I watched it more. Ryan still babbling. I'm not listening to him at this point at all. I'm studying this walking man close, but I keep thinking it's the sun in my eyes. Why is it all black? Its arms swing different than a person. And at that point, I looked at its head, and it had no neck. And for effing sure, it was all black and was a Sasquatch because I had saw hundreds of photos. So I stood up super fast and pointed and said, "It's an effing Sasquatch." And my friend was like, "Holy shit, what is that?" The Sasquatch just nonchalantly stopped. This is the funny part. I act out at parties. Did like, "Hun, I didn't see you. Oh well, it's just those two little..." "Hun, I didn't see you. Oh well, it's just those two little dudes." And humbly turned 90 degrees, walked off the tracks and down a very steep hill, instantly blending out of vision. We joked heading back to tow. Spelling mistakes. We joked heading back to town, wanting to catch it and selling it for beer money. Okay, I get it now. Sorry about my delivery, man. I've been reading a little long here. We joked heading back to town, wanting to catch it and selling it for beer money. It was always just kind of a party joke for me, and to this day I never felt it was a negative experience, but more of the revel, perhaps. Number 4, light ship. I've also seen a UFO once, another story, kind of like the ones on the video UFOs over London. Just a white orb in the sky, moved in many different directions. I always am aware, and that... Hold on. Number 4, a light ship. I've also seen a UFO once, another story, kind of like the ones on the video UFOs over London. Just a white orb in the sky moved in many different directions. I always am aware, and that blew my mind. It speeds up and down, then changed directions and vanished. There's also a video over the same mountain called Crystal Mountain on Castanet of the same type of UFO. Oh yeah, I saw that right off my deck one night. Alright, number 5, Noatik, N-H-A-A-T-I-K. 6 of us witnessed Noatik, referred to the natives for over 1,000 years, or Ogopogo, in Reluctant Dragon Cove in Okanagan Lake near Rattlesnake Island, where I live now. Have lived there for the last 20 years. This is my wife, brother-in-law's, his wife, and 6 kids total. We rented a pontoon boat and we're going for a swim on a calm day. I know it can be thermal inversions, wind, etc., but this wave had black flippers inside of it. Everyone was puzzled. It exposed itself for some time, 15 seconds, and then vanished. Again, there are many other videos out there showing the same, best one being a kid on a paddleboard. When it exposed itself, my wife was on the pontoon boat and the rest of us were swimming to shore. I was kind of worried, but my brother-in-law is a laser scientist and dismissed it instantly. I tried to be cool and make jokes, the kids would chill. During a swim, I saw a snake and screamed and got all kids screaming. It was really funny, again, not negative. As we used the inner tube to go to shore to explore, I remember when kicking the inner tube back and all the kids were super scared, laughing, joking, looking at my sister-in-law thinking, well, come and get me if I die because of Ogie effing A. I recently purchased an underwater drone camera and will be investigating Rattlesnake Island by fully mapping it out underwater with the cave system. Stay tuned. That'll be pretty crazy to watch. Thank you for your time and the platform you've created. Felt good to write this, and your show kicks ass. Please keep up the good work. And if you want to meet up at Stillwater for some trophy Penasque rainbows on the connector, let me know. Cheers. All right. There was a handful. Holy cow, I need a break. My jaw's starting to feel it, and I just need a break. I've been reading a little too much in one go. I want to go explore some more up there before it's time to go. But thanks for that share, man. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. That underwater drone, I haven't even heard of that myself yet. I'm going to Google one of those up and check it out. I'd be really interested in seeing what that is. I could do some crazy shit with one of those things. The places I go on the coast, that'd be amazing. Especially if you got control of it. I don't know how that works. Actually, I'm going to start talking about it. I'll Google that myself and have a look at it. Because I know it can't transmit the video photography above the water to out of water. I know that, so I guess you're gonna have to have some kind of a wire going to it, right? Wire feed to the remote control. But anyway, let me get my butt out, go up that way, and you can see if I can get to the top of this thing and show everybody some more views and catch my breath, get my jaw a frickin' break. And see if I can't get some more shares out well enough on this mountain before I go home. Be safe, everybody. If you got something you want to share, you got some knowledge for everyone, share my story at howithunt.com or tell my story at howithunt.com, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it.